Alright there, YouTube, what's occurring this evening? Hopefully everyone can hear me. Nice, cool, okay, good to know that you've got me on board here. So, hi everyone, I hope you're all doing good this evening. I've just been away on holiday for like a week, so now that I'm back, I wanted to catch up with yous and see what the hell's been going on in my absence. So it seems like it's kind of a busy time right now. Batwoman's dropped on the world like a big fat turd. We're going to be getting a new trailer for the Rise of Skywalker, which I'm sure we're all really excited about. Oh, and the Watchmen's just come out, and apparently it's all about race and white supremacy and all those other nasty things. So it's pretty much like everything else in 2019 then. So basically, yeah, I just wanted to have a chat with you guys, and I'm going to be here to answer questions. I was kind of hoping that I would be online for when the Rise of Skywalker trailer actually drops, but I don't think I'm going to be still conscious by that point because it's not going to hit the UK until like 2 in the morning. I'm just having a look through some of the comments here. Where was I? From Kamen Kunchev. I was in Portugal, just near Faro, and it was delightful. The weather was really nice, and I was staying in an all-inclusive hotel, so they allowed me to do as much drinking as I wanted. And believe me, I tanned the shit out of that one. Stunning and brave, just like Alan Moore wanted. Yeah, I've heard that this version of Watchmen basically takes absolutely nothing from the original graphic novel and just does its own thing. And I've got the horrible suspicion that it's just going to be a vehicle for politics, which is what everything is these days. But I am going to watch it. Hopefully tomorrow, actually, I can get started on it. But I also really want to do a review of the first episode of Batwoman. I don't think I've got it in me to watch the entire series, but surely one episode won't kill me. Drinker, you dashing Dionysian dilettante. Have you watched The Expanse yet? Also, what are your thoughts on Rogue One and Solo? I haven't watched The Expanse yet. I really want to set aside a decent bit of time to blast through it because people keep recommending it to me and I want to do it justice and give it a proper review. So it's really just a case of getting some of the other stuff I want to do out of the way so I've got time for it. What are my thoughts on Rogue One and Solo? Rogue One is fine. That's about the best I can say about it. Like, it's inoffensive. It seems to be one of those movies in the new Disney scheme of things that like nobody really talks about anymore. Like, it's not particularly amazing, but it's not bad either. It's just a kind of meh. It'll keep you going for like 2 hours, and well, it looks quite good. I think the main character is boring as shit though, like Jin Urso. And I honestly can't believe that Cassian Andor is going to be getting his own series, apparently. Like, he's not a character that I really want to know more about or see more of. As in terms of Solo, uh, um, it's not bad. This is the weird thing about it. I think Solo was more a casualty of war at that point. Everyone was so pissed off after The Last Jedi that they pretty much boycotted it just on principle. I mean, the only time I actually watched it was on a flight over to the States, so it wasn't exactly in like a brilliant viewing experience, but I thought it was okay. Again, much like Rogue One, it just kind of reliably fills an hour or two. I think the ending was just ridiculous with all the double and triple and quadruple crosses. And I think Amelia Clark really can't hold her own as like a femme fatale character. I actually don't know what kind of character she can actually play because she ain't much of an actress in my book. But never mind, that's my thoughts on those movies. Cheers, drinker. Am I allowed to say that I personally missed you? Welcome back, good sir. I hope your vacation was full of rest and good drink. Thank you, Danquish. I believe you're. This is the dude, by the way, who've produced the lightsaber with my voice programmed into it. So every time you swipe the blade, it'll give you a drinker quote, and it's just absolutely incredible. You've done good work on that one, sir. But yeah, it's good to be back. I had a nice week off, and it's kind of recharged my batteries. So can't say better than that, really. What whiskey did your great granddad drink as the Titanic went down? Oh yeah, yeah. Anything he could get his hands on. This is the story of a baker who was on board the Titanic, and like went into the water with a lot of the other survivors when the ship sank, and apparently he got completely rat arsed before it sank, and as a result, he didn't freeze to death. So he's a man after my own heart. Yeah, I would imagine he just grabbed whatever he could get. I like to think he had a good brandy. That seems to be what people drink when they're cold. What else have we got here? Trek Dog. Hail Critical Drinker, great work. It would be awesome to watch you on a stream with Nerdrotic. Any chance to get Star Trek Discovery or Orville reviews? Fair warning for Star Trek Discovery, bring a barrel to make it through. Yeah, I've heard absolutely terrible things about it. I've seen some of what's his name? Both Trek's reviews of Discovery, and it just looks absolutely dire. I think I watched like the first 3 episodes, and my issue with it at the time was just that it was really dull. I couldn't get into any of the characters. I think Michael Burnham's a terrible main character who's just really like boring. She's got no personality. I know that she's raised by Vulcans, so she's meant to be logical, but it just completely breaks the lore and the continuity of the series that the Vulcans would adopt a human daughter, and it's just a horrible like piece of fan fiction insert into like an existing canon. So I don't approve of it at all. But the Orville is a whole different kettle of fish. I really like it. I haven't watched all of it by any measure. I kind of dip in and out of it, but it's the kind of show you can just enjoy episode by episode. But it really is, as people have said, what Star Trek Discovery should have been. It's a Star Trek show in all but name, and it's got good characters, good dialogue. It's funny, but it's also tackling quite serious issues. So hats off to it. Really like it, and it would be good to do a review sometime. Um, in terms of Nerve Drotic, yeah, I'd love to do a stream with them, with Gary. Sorry, my door's open, so by all means, if he wants to get in touch or whatever, we'll sort something out. Uh, what else? Sentient dildo. I'm selling a piece of blank wood from which Brie Larson was carved. Anyone interested? I don't know, mate. You could be waiting a while to get that one sold. What's my favourite cider? Mine's Henry Weston's, depressed director. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I know why you'd picked Henry Weston's because it's got like the highest percentage of any cider that I know. It's like 9.6, so it's bordering on wine territory. But I actually like fucking what's it called? There's a cider that's done in whiskey casks, so it's got like a kind of a slight taste of whiskey to it, and it's about 6% or something. So it's actually really good. I'm just trying to think of the name. It's totally passed me by. If anyone can think of it, please let the chat know. Hi, Drinker. Thanks for the boys' advice. Yeah, the boys is a show that I really enjoyed, and I think most people who I've recommended it to seem to have enjoyed it too. It's just an interesting take on the superhero genre. It's slightly different. Davy Jones, the Titanic sinking captain. Nah, it'll be fine. I wish that was the attitude they had. I would have liked to seen that in the movie. How about the drinker recommends Peaky Blinders? Yeah, I would very much like to do a review of that. I'm just about halfway through the current series right now, so I've still got a little bit of catching up to do. But it's one of those shows that's just great. Great characters, well shot, great dialogue. Can't really fault it, to be honest. I really enjoy it. Oh, 8.2% for the cider. Sorry, I was overestimating. I thought it was over 9, but I'll take your word for that, man. I hear the Mary Sue known as Ray, sorry, Daisy Ridley might be top choice for Batgirl movie. Your thoughts? She's got all the acting talent of Brie Larson. I think she might as well bounce from one franchise to the next. I don't imagine her schedule is going to be particularly full after the Star Wars movies have wrapped because there's not that much to her. I think Daisy Ridley's problem is that she's just not a very distinct actress. She just looks bland. I don't know if the script just doesn't give her an opportunity to act particularly well. I've certainly not seen her in anything else, so I can't gauge it, but she certainly doesn't set the screen on fire. But yeah, I'd love to see her versus Ruby Rose. I mean, it's like a battle of the non-actors, really. Batwoman looks like a conservative blast compared with Watchmen. Watchmen looks like thinly veiled propaganda. Yeah, from what I've heard, the first episode opens up with a massacre based on race riots that were going on back in like the 1920s. So yeah, that's pretty much going to set the tone for it. I mean, the original Watchmen was all centered around the Cold War and Doomsday. Obviously, that was the whole symbol of it. God knows where they're going to go with this new incarnation of it. I'm pretty sure it'll abandon all that stuff in favor of propaganda. But yeah, I will do a review of it at some point. Uh, Hey, Critical Drinker, I heard they had 6 different endings for the new Star Wars. What do you think of that? From Ryan Mozart. Yeah, I have been trying to follow this while I've been away on holidays, so I've only got some of the information, but I've watched Overlord DVD's summary of this one, and my reaction is pretty much like him. If they are still filming, and if they are still struggling to get an ending locked down this close to release, that movie is in some serious fucking trouble. Um, I'm not entirely surprised if this is what they've gone for. This The problem they've got is that they've kind of written themselves into a narrative corner with the whole thing. They have got a protagonist that no one gives a crap about because she's an invincible Mary Sue with no character arc and no personality. They've got an antagonist who is completely neutered and isn't really bad enough to be a proper villain, and is never allowed to present any real threat to the main character anyway. So we've got nothing to go on with him. We've got a bunch of evil, supposedly evil Empire bad guys who are just incompetent clowns at this point, that have been completely ground into the dust by The Last Jedi. And we've got a big bad guy who's been killed in the last movie. So we're a bit stuck in terms of things we can actually do at this point. So I'm not surprised that they've got so many different possibilities lined up, or so many different ideas for how they could end it because they literally don't know what to do. I think Disney at this point are savvy enough to know that they've fucked up, but not smart enough to know how to fix it, and that's why they're struggling so much. So yeah, I'd love to see what some of these endings are because I just think it's going to be incredible what they actually go with. Ryan Johnson ruined the timeline. Yes, he did. The prequels seem like masterpieces at this point. I'm not I'm not going to say masterpieces, but they are at least an example of a good idea that's badly executed, whereas the sequels are an example of no ideas horribly executed. So I know what I would take. At least the intention was there with the prequels and the potential was there, but now there's nothing to work with. We've got all the main characters, or sorry, all the original characters have either been killed off or the actors that played them have died. And they've pretty much said that we don't care about the original trilogy, except when we try to milk it for nostalgia. I'm rooting for the Empire to win just to get it over with. Yeah, me too, actually. Twist reality. Hey Drinker, I loved your Resident Evil series. Is there any chance of a similar series based on a different game or movies? Well, I do like the idea of like kind of charting a series over time to see how it changes and develops and stuff. I'd originally thought to do something like that with the Tomb Raider games because I did a video on comparing the original Tomb Raider with the latest one, and pretty much contrasting the two games and the design philosophies behind them and the way they depict Lara Croft. And it was quite well received. I just don't know if I could sustain that level of detail over all of them. I'd, if I had it in me, I'd quite like to do the Resident Evil movies because holy shit, there's some absolute gold to be mined there for criticism. They are disasters in the making. So yeah, I'd be interested in doing something like that. The retrospective on the Resident Evil games was just something that I enjoyed doing. I knew it wouldn't get a huge number of views because they're so old, but I just love those games, so it was nice to talk about them. What do I expect of the new Star Wars trailer? Well, I think it's going to be vague because if the rumors are to be believed and they don't have an end in lockdown at this point, they're not going to want to give too much away. So I do expect lots of shots of spaceships blowing things up, and people staring off meaningfully into the distance without actually giving much away. I'm hoping we'll at least get more than what we've had in the last two trailers, which was just a highlight reel of previous movies. And a really bored sounding Mark Hamill talking about how awesome Ray is. So give us something. I mean, I think at this point they're being forced to release a trailer, even though they don't want to. So it'll be great to see what they actually produce. Did I play Silent Hill? Yeah, I did back in the day. It was really good. I played like the first three, I think, and then kind of lost interest after that because it felt like they were kind of going off the rails and just kind of recycling ideas and enemies rather than telling original stories. But the first two, especially, were great. Great kind of horror games. Set a really good atmosphere. Obviously, the graphics are laughable by today's standards, but as I said in my Tomb Raider review, you know, graphics really aren't everything with games. You know, you can create a lot with very little. It all comes down to like how creative you want to be, and those games were very creative. So yeah, I really liked them. Mr. Morphs, mate, you're a legend. I love your videos. Always good for a laugh or some spot on insight. Cheers to you, pal. Thanks, buddy. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I try to make them entertaining, but also contain some sort of useful information that people can get into because that's my objective as a reviewer, I guess. I like to, if possible, review something and I'll point out the faults, but also try to suggest ways that you could fix them, or at least point to other movies or TV shows or whatever it might be that have done a better job. Um, the Souls, what's your thoughts on the Blizzard situation? Well, I'm really pleased that they've embraced our communist overlords. I think it's about time that we all fell into line, comrades. I'll be buying my hammer and sickle shortly. Yeah, I think it's just a terrible idea. I think it's a terrible strategy that that company's taken, um, to bow to censorship like that. At this point, it's been disastrous for them. And I think gamers are smart enough to recognize the kind of bullshit that's going on here. It's just companies bending the knee for profit, and screwing over people and screwing over their own products and their own creative freedom just to make a few bucks. So yeah, they deserve everything that's coming to them. I think I've got zero sympathy for them at this point. Uh, have you heard that they're reshooting the entire Mulan film from scratch? What a mess. Glad to see it all burned down, though. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I've answered this on previous live streams, but I've made my thoughts clear about this bullshit of live action remakes of all these Disney classics. It's the laziest form of storytelling. You're literally just doing the same thing again with live actors or computer animated lions for the Lion King. It's a joke. We don't need it. These movies, the original movies, told the stories well. you know, put your creative energies into doing something new and something original instead of just giving us the same crap again, just repackaged. So yeah, I hope it fails. I hope all these Disney live action remakes fail, to be honest. Just from the point of view that they are creatively bankrupt. Support ER. You're working on a new book. If so, what's it about? I've got a couple in the pipeline. The one I'm working on at the moment is the final book in the Ryan Drake series. So it represents the culmination of about 10 years of plotting and characterization and kind of intertwined story threads that are all going to come to a head in this final book. So I'm kind of excited about doing it, to be honest. A bit sad that it's going to end, but that's the nature of all stories, I guess. They all have to end eventually. So, yeah, I will give you guys more information as it progresses. And I'm actually going to be doing a competition when I get to 200,000 subscribers to basically get a character named after you in the book. And various other prizes that I'm going to be doling out to the winner. So stay tuned for more information about that when I get round to doing it. Charles Caballero, did it piss you off when the Cobra Kai writers had the legend that his Hawk loses fight against future male feminist Dimitri? Well, Hawk is a fucking legend. His character is just brilliant. I love how he just goes from this complete shy, useless nerd to a complete overconfident asshole. He did act like a total dick towards Dimitri and bullied him, so I guess the show was trying to give us a bit of a culmination to their rivalry and a bit of a put down for him for being a dick. But yeah, I think he could have kicked Dimitri's ass, and I didn't believe that Dimitri could beat him at all because he seems like a total asshole. Qui-Gon, Star Wars The Old Republic MMORPG has better storylines, especially for Imperial Agent and Sith Warrior than the sequel trilogy. Such a shame. Yeah, I think it's just more of this stuff from like the expanded universe and the games and stuff that they've just abandoned. And yeah, it's a sad state of affairs for the Disney sequel trilogy when the writers of video games are doing a better job than their best people. Um, yeah, what can I say? They have backed the wrong horse on this one, I think. The big whoop, nothing written here. Okay, I've got nothing to say in that case. Thanks for the super chat and the donation anyway, man. I appreciate it. What critically acclaimed movies do I hate? From George. Uh, Good question. The problem with a lot of the movies nowadays is that you're getting movies like Black Panther, which are critically acclaimed because they say all of the right things and they push all the right agendas, but they're terrible movies. So I don't know if movies like that count, because at this point critics and their opinions are just completely irrelevant. But yeah, that would definitely be one that I hate, from the fact that it's so overrated and people fawn over it so incessantly. Most of the sort of classic ones, I'm fine with. I mean, there's movies that you know were amazingly rated back in the day, and critics lauded them, that I recognize are good. I just don't really get into them that much, and perhaps they just don't appeal to me personally. Trying to think of a good example of that, like the first Godfather movie is probably like that for me. Really well regarded movie, but I just never quite got into it the way I'd hoped to, and it pissed me off because I feel like I should have loved it and I just didn't. Drinker, how do we make sure your videos make money on YouTube? Do we have to watch the ads rather than click through them? Do we have to go to the ad sites? Thanks for all the great videos. I actually don't know how it happens. I just like clicked monetization and YouTube sort of does the rest. I presume in order to make the best out of it, like you have to click the banner ad or something, but I wouldn't ask anyone to do that because, you know, you're there to watch my content. The ads are just something that allows me to kind of make a bit of a living off it. But yeah, don't stress, man. It's not worth it. Enraged Stoic, what do you think of Crystal Heads? I presume you mean the vodka. It's excellent. I mean, it looks cool. I think for me, like most vodkas, when you chill them down and you serve them like ice cold, like they're meant to be, most of them taste fairly similar. Like I find it hard to sort of discern the difference with them, like I do with whiskies. They all taste perfectly fine and kind of crisp and clear. But I find it hard to distinguish like the luxury brands from like the more basic stuff. So maybe that's just my lack of vodka expertise on the go there. Eric Stewart, Drinker, I know you're busy doing a stream right now and all, but really need you to come over here and work these days. Yeah, I'll be right over once I'm done with the stream. Thanks for letting me know. Erin Everett, love your reviews. You validate my opinions on so many things. Curious on your opinion on Rogue One. Yeah, I think I don't know if you caught when earlier when I was talking about it, but my opinion on Rogue One is that it's a perfectly acceptable movie. It's not particularly outstanding in any way. The main character's not all that interesting, and I didn't quite believe her character arc that she goes through. But yeah, some of the actors in it are great. I like Ben Mendelsohn in anything that he's in. He always makes me happy. I did like the Darth Vader sort of cameo where he got his moment of total awesomeness, just killing rebel troopers everywhere. And I quite like the end battle of it as well. Like I say, not a spectacular movie by any means, but it just kind of solidly did the job, I guess. You can watch it and not be offended by it and think this is fucking up Star Wars canon. It seems it seems somewhat respectful towards its source material, so good on it, I guess. Deflick Maestro Drinker, why is Gamora? Yeah, good question. Who is she as well? Apparently, that whole line was ad libbed by Dave Bautista's, from what I've been told. So good on him because it's actually really funny. It had me laughing in the cinema. So yeah, it's a good line. I like it. Thoughts on Coppola calling Marvel movies despicable? Yeah, I mean, you know, obviously Scorsese and Coppola now have come out to criticize the MCU, and it's hard to not just think they're being butthurt about this because the movies are massively successful. Like I don't think anyone's pretending that they are um, massive artistic endeavors and that they're you know up there with some of the cinematic greats, but they're kind of reliable entertainment, I guess, for people. They are the definition of summer blockbuster movies. They're the kind of thing you watch just to enjoy for a couple of hours and not think too much about it. And in that respect, they work. It's not to say that more intelligent movies can't be done or can't happen nowadays. And I think Joker is certainly proof of that. Um, but yeah, like I think everything has its place and perhaps its time, and it could well be that the MCU is starting to run out of steam now that it's got past Endgame. Certainly, I've not been impressed with anything they've rolled out for Phase Four, or that they've got planned on their slate. So I guess we'll see how it goes. But it could well be that we're reaching the end of this absolute Marvel juggernaut, and it's going to slow down a little bit, and perhaps leave more room for other movies, more creative and thoughtful movies like Joker. And if you haven't seen it, go see it because it's amazing. Last movie that I walked out of, I've only walked out of one movie. In my life that I can think of, and that was the Flintstones when I was like 5 years old or something, and that's just because I was bored off my tits. Yeah, I think I just like had enough of that film, and I just went, "Mum, I want to leave." So off I went. But yeah, I've never walked out on a movie as an adult. Like I even slogged my way through The Last Jedi. So yeah, I'll believe in at least seeing movies through to the end, especially if I want to form an opinion about them. MCU ended with Endgame for me. Yeah, I think it's the same for a lot of people, to be honest. Watchmen is too good. Well, I'll take your word on that one. I'll wait and see. Alex Nelson. Drinker, how long does it take to write a script for a video? Do you do rewrites? Also, what inspired you to write books and do videos? Love your work. Thanks, man. Um, It obviously depends on the length of the review. Some of my reviews are really short, like less than like 10 minutes. Others go well over the 20-minute mark, so it's going to depend there. But usually 2 or 3 days to write the script, and then it's only like half an hour to actually record the audio. The editing usually takes a bit of time, especially if it's a movie that's been out for a while. So I've actually got a lot of footage to work with, and I can put relevant stuff in. The problems always come in when it's like a movie that's just out of the cinema. So all I've got is pretty much the trailer footage to work with, and I always feel like I'm cheating because I'm just pretty much playing it on a loop. But there's not much else you can do really. So yeah, like probably to produce a video, 4 or 5 days in total for a fairly complicated one. I can sometimes speed it up if I'm really eager to get the video out, but that's about the benchmark. What inspired me to do books and videos? I just love storytelling. Like fundamentally, like telling stories, the idea that you can just come up with something in your head, and put it down on the page, or if you're lucky, put it into a movie, and then have it be something that people will watch or read or buy into in some way, and it becomes an experience that you've shared with other people, and that they've kind of believed in it, or at least shared in that enjoyment. So it's a great thing to do. Not everyone, I guess, enjoys it, but I certainly do. So that's why I write books, and I guess that's why I'll always want to create things. And I think, in terms of why I make these videos on YouTube, um, there's a lot wrong with the entertainment industry these days, and a lot of ways where I think it's inferior to what we were doing 20, 30, 40 years ago. Um, and I just, in my way, I try to call attention to that, I suppose, and sort of share my thoughts on where I think it's going wrong, and point to movies and TV shows and things that did it so much better back in the day. That's my passion, and that's what I try to share in my videos. Do I like wild turkey? Yeah, it's perfectly fine. I know I get a lot of shit for drinking Jack Daniels, but that's kind of what I show in my videos. My whiskies of choice are usually single malt Scotch whiskey. In fact, at the moment, I've got a nice glass of Old Putney 12-year-old, and it's really good. But yeah, wild turkey is perfectly fine. I don't have any problems drinking that. It's just not my drink of choice. Darush, hello from Chicago, drinker. I love your channel. Have you seen Fleabag? Would be interested to see your opinion on it. No, I haven't seen Fleabag. It never appealed to me, and the clips that I've seen of it just looked kind of excruciating, like it was trying really hard to be funny. I know that Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who wrote it, is absolutely flavor of the month at the moment with the media. They just cannot say enough good things about her. But then I've watched her work on Killing Eve, and it's disastrous. Like what she's done with a show that actually started out kind of quirky and interesting, it's just awful. Totally unsuited to the genre that she was writing for. So I think she's kind of overrated, if I'm honest. Speaking of Joker, are you looking forward to Jodie Whittaker's return to Doctor Who next year? Yeah, please make her stop. You see, I heard a lot of rumors that she was going to be leaving after this season. Apparently, she had um, Chris Chib. No, not Chris Chibnall. Um, who's the guy who's the current showrunner? Oh, whatever his name is. He was involved in creative differences with the BBC in terms of like the use of Daleks and stuff like that. And he got into such a row with them that he stormed off set, and then Jodie Whittaker stormed off with him. So apparently both of them are going to be departing after this season, and it can't come soon enough because they've apparently done nothing but destroy the show. It's been kind of on a downward trend since Peter Capaldi um, kind of took over. And no disrespect to him, because I think he did his best with the material, but he just didn't have good material to work with. Hey, Drinker, what was that video you made that was the hardest to think of? Um, I'm guessing you mean like the hardest one to produce and write for. Um, I think that would be Spider-Man Far From Home, because I honestly didn't know what to make of that movie. It was a movie that I sort of recognized that was well made, but I just didn't like it, and it was hard to bring that across in my review, because you're trying to criticize something, but you're trying to remain somewhat objective in your criticisms as well. So yeah, that was a tough one to write, actually. It probably wasn't my greatest, but I think I got the point across. Enraged Stoic, I saw Ghosts of Mars 38 times in the theater. Well, well done, man. It was quite a movie. It wasn't exactly Carpenter's finest work, I don't think, and it was pretty obvious that it was done on a pretty limited budget. But yeah, it was fun, I suppose. Will I be reviewing Zombieland 2? Yeah, definitely. I really want to. It's just there's so many other movies to do in the meantime. But yeah, the first Zombieland was a great film and it was fun. So I'm sure the second one will be a good fitting addition to it. Are they actually going to do all those Avatar sequels? Apparently they are. James Cameron is the kind of guy that really likes to take his time over a movie, and produces one every like decade or so. I just think the ship has sailed with Avatar, to be honest. Everyone was wowed by the visuals of it back in the day, and it really just caught that moment when 3D was becoming popular. Um, but in terms of the actual story, it was pretty weak. The main character was pretty uninspired. Um, and Sam Worthington's not like the biggest box office draw ever. So yeah, I don't know how much appetite there'll be for a sequel, and I think if there's going to be anything beyond that, it'll depend on whether Avatar 2 actually does well, and I'm not all that hopeful for it. Will you do a woke fate review slash rant? Yes, I fucking will. I've talked about the trailers of that movie, and I cannot wait to see it. I think it's going to be spectacular. So yeah, look forward to a review of that. Danquish. Drinker, we wholeheartedly believe that Batwoman and ultimately Star Wars exist solely for you to review them. We eagerly await your alcohol-fueled wisdom, and I can't wait to upgrade the saber with more. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to your next lightsaber video. Um, yeah, some of these movies, your TV shows as well, I just look at them and think, this is like a gift from heaven. It's just going to give me so much material to work with. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to reviewing both of those things. Marduk Griffin, do you have a favorite book that you'd like to see adapted into a movie or a video game? Not really, if I'm honest, because most book to movie adaptations have been pretty disappointing. And I think, they're two very different mediums, and I think it's really difficult to translate from one to the other. Not many directors have done it successfully without drastically altering the source material. You can take something like The Shining, which is a fantastic horror movie, but it's way different from the book. So yeah, I think I'm happy for books to kind of remain as books and just enjoy them as that, if I'm honest with you. What's my thoughts on Zodiac, directed by David Fincher? Yeah, God, that's been a while since I've seen that one. I mean, it's a great, well put together movie. I can't say anything particularly bad about it. It's been, like I say, it's a good few years since I've seen it, so it's difficult to give you a kind of current review. But I remember finding it quite disturbing at the time. The way some of the murders are perpetrated, killing people in front of their partners and things like that. The movie captures that kind of terror really well. So yeah, good movie. I was I was gonna walk out of Captain Marvel, but then I decided to buy tickets to another movie instead. Yeah, I think that was money well spent in that case. Um, yeah, Captain Marvel just kind of a disastrous movie, really, and I don't buy into the box office that it supposedly earned either. Um, I've heard a lot of these rumors about cinemas with suspiciously large numbers of tickets that never had people show up for them. I think it was about 25 per theater per showing, which just seems dodgy as fuck, to be honest. And I think Disney have been cooking the books on this one because they just couldn't afford to have that movie fail. And now we're hearing that Captain Marvel's apparently going to have a bit of a relationship with Spider-Man. He's going to have a schoolboy crush on her. I don't know why they would ever do that. I don't see what's going to be gained by that, and it seems really creepy that a woman would have an interest in a kid who's literally half her age. But I guess it's okay when Captain Marvel does it. No question, just a thank you for the awesome and entertaining reviews, but most of all for the boys' recommendation. Thank you very much, Bonter1983. Yeah, I think my probably my favorite videos are the ones where I can recommend something to people and then they actually go away and watch it and really enjoy it because it's great to tear down shitty movies, but it's even better to recommend good stuff. And one of the ones I'm happiest with is Falling Down, which is my most recent video. I really enjoyed that one, and it's a movie that I've wanted to talk about for a long time. So it was great for me to finally share my kind of enjoyment of it and my thoughts on that film. And I think a few people then went away and watched it, and it certainly brought back a lot of memories for other people who hadn't seen it in years. So again, another movie that I wholeheartedly recommend, and it's actually still as relevant now as it was back when it was made in the early 90s. Do a double review of Carpenter's The Ward and Snyder's Sucker Punch. Wow, that would be a challenge and a half. Um, yeah, I mean, Sucker Punch has got all of Snyder's kind of visual trademarks on it, and as a piece of just visual medium, it's great fun to watch. Like watching these main characters fight their way through World War One trenches, fighting zombie German soldiers and shooting down zeppelins and stuff. It's fun. It's just that the plot that ties it all together is absolute nonsense. So yeah, um, not one that would be an easy one to review, especially comparing it to the Ward. Um, Falling Down was good, but it was no Ghosts of Mars. No, it certainly wasn't. Nothing quite compares to Ghosts of Mars. It's funny seeing Jason Statham as just like a bit character who gets killed off. Like, um, yeah, that was obviously like when he was just trying to make it as a mainstream actor, or trying to become an A-lister, and he hadn't quite made it yet. So he's having to labor away in movies like that. What are your recommendations on Scotch? Currently drinking an 18-year-old Glenlivet. Yeah, good choice. I would say my current drink of choice is the Old Putney, which I'm drinking right now. I really like that because the distillery is actually built near the sea, and because of that, the casks that they mature the whiskey in absorb some of the salt in the air, so you actually get a slight undertone of saltiness to the whiskey. So for that reason, I really recommend it, and I also recommend Highland Park because it's another great whiskey. And I've actually been to the distillery, so it's a cool place. It's amazing the amount of care that goes into this stuff. Deciduous Livingston. Hey, nice videos. Do you ever play the Thief series? I haven't actually played the Thief series, unfortunately. I have heard good things about it. It's been going for a long time, from what I remember. I remember Thief, the original, coming out back in the 90s. But yeah, it's just one that I never really got into. I believe they're kind of stealth em ups, and I was never quite into that style of gaming, so it wasn't really one for me, unfortunately. What's my top five favorite YouTubers? Oh man, who to pick? I mean, I can tell you the ones I kind of watch regularly. Um, I watch Mauler because I'm a big fan of his style of long form analysis, and I think it's taught me a lot about movie criticism and picking apart the actual nuts and bolts of how a plot works. So he's definitely one of my favorites. I listen to Tim Pool quite a lot because I like he's more of a political kind of guy, but he gives a really good balanced take on a lot of things, and there doesn't seem to be too much bullshit with the guy, so I do like his style. Um, who else? Um, I like a guy called The Game in Brit because he does really brilliant retrospective reviews on the Resident Evil series. He understands the actual structure of the games brilliantly well, and he's currently he's working his way through all of them to talk about how they're made and how they're paced and everything. Really good guy. I enjoy him. Um, what was the other two that I listened to most, or that I watch most? Um, I enjoy Shitcase Cinema. He's a fairly small channel, but I do recommend him. He does a lot of reviews of just shitty old like obscure movies that most people have never heard of, but he does a really humorous take on them. So I quite enjoy that, and I do still enjoy Red Letter Media. I loved the Plinkett reviews back in the day, and I do still watch the sort of regular show they do where they just kind of talk about movies. It's half in the bag. Um, it's obviously like an easier format for them to talk about, but again, we get quite good insights into movies, and I especially love it when they tear films apart. So those are probably my main ones. I also love Video Game Donkey because he's got a really good humorous take on most things, on most video games that he reviews. So I really like him. I'm just working my way back through some of the comments here. Um, Hey Crit, Captain Marvel needs someone, and frankly, this version of Peter Parker makes him the perfect pool boy toy. Yeah, I guess so. Like I say, I still think it's a bit creepy that he's so young and she's kind of a fair bit older than him. And I just really don't see what he would see in her. There's nothing to see really. She's just this block of wood that doesn't really have a facial expression. Atreides, greetings from Jack Daniels country, Tennessee, USA. Any news on Villeneuve's Dune? Heard nasty rumor that a major character has been sex swapped. Ugh. Yeah, I haven't heard much recently about it, so I'll reserve judgment on that. Um, you know, I really enjoyed the original novel of Dune. For something that was written so long ago, it was pretty ahead of its time in terms of like the technology and the world that it created. And I still think it's great to read even now. And none of the screen adaptations have really done it justice. The movie from the 80s was kind of farcical, really. I think they were really hampered by their budget and their kind of visual effects, and the plot just really cut so much out of it. And then the miniseries, I think it was a bit closer to the events of it, but it felt kind of cheap to me. So I'll wait. I'll reserve judgment on the new one and just see it when it comes out, I guess. Hey, drinker, have you ever tried the Oban Scotch, and what did you think? Uh, Good question. If I have, it's been quite a while ago. I don't think I've ever like owned a bottle of it. I think I've just like drunk it on a night out or whatever. Um, but from what I remember, it was quite peaty. I could be thinking of a different one, but yeah, that's my memories of it. But I don't think I've ever like bought it myself. So yeah. How was Black Panther for me? Black Panther was really dumb and boring for me, and I don't understand why it got the huge amount of praise that it did. Well, actually, I do kind of understand why it got the praise that it did, um, and I think we all kind of know. It was, you know, people who try to defend it, they point to things that either didn't happen in the movie or they read a lot more into it than actually happened. Like, they claim that the movie is actually a criticism of Wakanda and its way of life because it's shown as Wakanda ultimately opening up to the rest of the world and acknowledging that they exist, and revealing the power of their technology. But I don't really buy into that because they just seem so unbelievably smug throughout the entire film. Wakanda is never actually explicitly criticized or shown as having a wrong philosophy. It's just like, yeah, it's time the rest of the world learned how awesome we are. So, yeah, I don't really buy into that. I think the movie came across as just pandering, for the most part, and quite a dumb plot, that had a lot of inconsistencies. And I think it's a shame because the Black Panther character actually came across pretty awesome in Civil War, but then when he actually got his own story, he just seemed weirdly neutered and toned down and dull, which is the last thing I would have expected of him, but there it was. So, yeah, it wasn't a great viewing experience, if I'm honest. Did you start your drinking life on Thunderbirds? No, I believe I started it on Omega, which was a shitty, like, cidery drink that we had back in the day. And of course, the obligatory Buckfast, because you've got to do it when you're in Scotland. It's mandatory, pretty much. But I moved on to better things since then, because those drinks will make you go blind. Trust me, I know. Currently drinking Cointreau orange liqueur with bites, plush enough to have been mentioned in Brideshead Revisited. Chin chin. I say, old chap, that's a fine drink. Normally, I know of Cointreau as being like a mixer with other stuff in like a cocktail, so I don't think I've ever had it just on its own. I assume it's very orangey though, so fair enough. Best thing to come from Black Panther was rhino milk. Yeah, the EFAP guys have been dining out on that for months now. It's great. Is this a Dumfries accent? No, it's not. This is a Fife accent, or at least what passes for one. If for anyone who's not familiar with Scotland, there's like the Highlands up in the north, which are beautiful, but there's not an awful lot going on there. And then there's like the major cities in the south, like Edinburgh and Glasgow, which have got lots of interesting things, but they're not all that pretty, in terms of scenery. And then there's the bit that I live in the middle, which isn't really interesting or pretty. So yeah, I got the worst of both worlds there. But anyway, that's my accent. What do I think of Lord of the Rings? Yeah, one of the great cinematic trilogies. I was going to say of our time, but it's almost 20 years old now, and that makes me feel really old because I actually saw it in the cinema. But incredible movies, and yeah, it feels like um, you don't see that kind of thing anymore. That kind of landmark kind of movie. I suppose it's a good example, actually, of a book that was pretty well translated into a film. For all that I was shitting on them earlier, they did a pretty damn good job with Lord of the Rings. Not so much with the Hobbit movies because they tried to take like a 250-page book and spin it out into 3 movies worth of material, and try and tie it into the Lord of the Rings when it didn't need to be. So, yeah, that just came across as a bit shitty, and cartoonish. So. Yeah, didn't like the Hobbit trilogy, but loved Lord of the Rings, and I'm still happy to watch them whenever I get the chance. Tay, thanks for answering my super chat earlier in the show. What are your thoughts on Breaking Bad, and will you review Alien Covenant someday? Yeah, Breaking Bad is another great show. when did I finish it? I think it was last year that I got to the end of it. I was slightly behind everyone else, and I kind of like I binge watched the whole thing. Um, but yeah, like the character of Heisenberg, and his gradual change from this like mild mannered teacher into this like criminal, um, almost like mastermind, who's willing to kill to further his aims and protect himself. It's an incredible bit of characterization spread over multiple seasons. And yeah, I can't really criticize the show. I've not heard great things about El Camino, and when my friend first told me about it, I was like, this just feels like a story that doesn't need to be told. We saw what happened to Jesse at the end of Breaking Bad. He got away. His story after that is less important than Walter's. So, I will probably give it a watch anyway. But yeah, I didn't think it was a story that really needed to be done. Um, will I review Alien Covenant? Yeah, I mean, Jesus, like Prometheus almost gave me a hemorrhage. Alien Covenant is a whole new level of shittiness. Um, but yeah, it's such a shame the way Ridley Scott went with these films. Like he took the absolute worst aspect of Alien, and tried to make this big pretentious, what's the meaning of life kind of movie, and it was just so unnecessary and just missed the point of what made Aliens so awesome in the first place. But I'll try and find enough booze to get me through Alien Covenant someday, because I guess it'd be good to do both movies. You're drinking shots of Kraken rum. Good one, sir. That's actually my favourite rum. I was drinking Captain Morgan's when I was away on holiday because it was free, but yeah, Kraken is far superior in my view. What is the mud scene used in your reviews from? It's hilarious. That's not mud, my friend. It's a scene from Not Another Teen Movie where a character, there's two like school kids who are trying to spy on this girl in the bathroom, and it turns out that she's taken a massive like explosive shit. And it so disturbs them that they fall through the air vent on top of her, and then she falls through into the room below, and they get showered with fecal matter. So it's quite horrific, but it makes for a good clip, and for the 2 seconds that it's on screen. And I tend to reserve it for a plot point or a character that's just absolutely shitty. Um, so I try not to overuse it now because I know I have used it a lot in the past with Game of Thrones, but that's where it came from. Yeah, superior, like Ghosts of Mars. I think we need to get a movement going here to promote Ghosts of Mars. Like, maybe I should do a review on it one day because it's one of those movies that I could have a field day with. Have you seen Batwoman? No, I haven't yet because, like I say, I only got back from holiday today. But I am going to watch it so I can review the first episode because I've done the trailer for it, so it seems only right that I give the show a go. I'm sure it's going to be lovely. Hey, Drinker, if you had the power to change just one thing about Last Jedi, what would it be? Also, El Camino was awesome. Cool. Well, maybe it is better than I've heard then. Like I say, I'll give it a go when I get the chance to watch it, and maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised. Just change one thing. Fuck. There's so many things I'd love to change. Like I'd love to wipe Rose Tico out of existence. I'd love to wipe Admiral Holdo out of existence. But the thing that I guess was most offensive for me was the treatment of Luke. That would have to be the thing that would change for me. I would make him a far more positive character and more proactive, and actually a man of authority and power like he deserves to be. I think you could actually probably work in a similar backstory for him, but just explain it better. Like you could have it that Snoke had been kind of attacking Luke kind of mentally over a period of months or years leading up to his confrontation with Kylo Ren, and gradually um, causing him to lose perspective and lose his sense of reality, so that he almost snapped and almost killed Kylo and kind of drove it back at the last moment. But it resulted in the destruction of his Jedi temple, and that he went into hiding to close himself off from Snoke to stop him from finding him. And that he spent his time on that island trying to find a solution to this, trying to study the ancient Jedi texts and find a way to stop Snoke from trying to lay control over him. And he ultimately perhaps succeeds and goes out in a proper blaze of glory. I think there's things you could do, but that would definitely be the thing I would change, is the treatment of Luke. NC Block 87. Have you read or listened to Fire and Blood, the history of the Targaryen kings 300 years before Game of Thrones? I would love for this to be a show. No, I haven't. I've only read, I think, two of the Song of Ice and Fire books. Um, I never quite got into them the way other people did, and I kind of read them just because I was watching the show and it was between seasons. But I haven't read the sort of the history behind it or the expanded material, so I couldn't really give my opinion on that. They are making about 20 different spin-offs of Game of Thrones, though, apparently, so we'll probably get this at some point. New Blade Runner was meh. I thought it was all right. I mean, it doesn't have the atmosphere of the first movie, but I think it tells quite a decent story, and it still keeps it ambiguous whether Deckard is a replicant or not. But yeah, it felt like a bit of an add-on. Probably not a story that really needed to be told again. And the stuff about the replicants being able to reproduce kind of didn't go anywhere. So it's almost like it was trying to set it up for another sequel. Um, but yeah, it was an okay movie. It didn't totally, shit the bed like something like The Last Jedi did. Will you watch the new Watchmen series? Yes, I will. It's available now for me to watch, and now that I'm back home, yeah, I can kind of get into it. Like I say, I've not heard good things about it, so I think it's going to be very charged with 2019 politics, because everything has to be about race or gender or sexuality nowadays. But who knows? Maybe I'll be surprised. I've always wanted James Cameron to direct a Jurassic Park sequel like Alien starring Arnold. I honestly wish James Cameron had directed another Terminator movie after T2. I wish he hadn't fucked around for so long doing pre-production on Titanic. I wish he'd gotten his head into it and produced a decent script that they could do something with, because ultimately the franchise has been turned over to clueless, incompetent morons, and the end result of it is Dark Fate. Um, I think Computing Forever actually did a really good takedown of how the Terminator series has just run into a creative dead end. And I'm inclined to agree, because all they can do is keep recycling the same basic plot thread over and over. It doesn't go in any new directions, it just does the same thing. And that being the case, what's the point? You're just repackaging the same idea. And it's just sad seeing Arnold now as a fat old man. Hey Drinker, sorry, John Robertson. Hey Drinker, have you seen The Killing of a Sacred Deer? I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts. I'm afraid I haven't, no. So I guess that's one I'll need to add to the list. Perhaps you can tell me more about it, but I'd never even heard of it, if I'm honest with you. Trick Dog, is there any alcohol or combination of alcohol that you would not recommend, and what is your worst personal hangover story? Well, the thing I would absolutely not recommend is Chinese firewater. I was on a stag do once, and one of our friends had been in China, just recently come back, and he'd brought a bottle of this shit with him. And he opened it up like halfway through the night. And he says, "Hey, try this, you'll like it." And it's honest to God, like the worst shit that I've ever tasted in my life. None of us could drink more than a few sips of it, and we ended up pouring it down the sink. And even then, it still stank the place up. So yeah, that would be my worst one. Avoid Chinese firewater. It's like It's like their version of moonshine. My worst hangover story. Yeah, this takes place a few years ago. Um, I was on a stag do in Tenerife with a bunch of friends, and we hit it pretty hard the first night because we were staying in a hotel with an open bar. So we abused that, and then we went out drinking afterwards, and then came back for more. So I was in a bad way when I woke up the next morning. I couldn't touch breakfast. All I could do was stare into a cup of coffee. And then one of my mates, the best man, in fact, has this bright fucking idea of like, hey guys, there's a great water park that's just near our hotel. We should go there and like muck about this morning. So we went along, and I was looking at all these like water slides, just thinking, I'm gonna puke my guts up if I go down these. So I was like, right, I'm gonna go on one of the tube rides where you just float down a lazy river. So I got in that, and I was floating along, just bobbing up and down and up and down. And I got that hot feeling in my stomach, and I was like, oh shit, it's going to happen. So climbed out of the tube, got up onto the side of the river, like as it was going down a tunnel thing, and absolutely spewed everywhere. I thought I was going to like, heave up my own stomach. And then, as I was being sick, I just heard this kid in the background floating down the tunnel going, "Dad, why is that man crying?" And this Glaswegian voice just goes, "Dinna look at him, son. Dinna look at him." And then all I heard as he was floating away was this guy muttering to himself, "Fuck's sake." So that's probably my worst hangover story. It still gives me chills when I think about it today. Jacob Cameron, hey Drinker, new subscriber from Florida. Loved your falling down video. Thanks, man. I'm glad you enjoyed it. That was a labor of love for me. Like I say, it's a movie I really enjoyed, and I've wanted to talk about it for a while. And I love coming to Florida, by the way. I've been to Orlando a bunch of times, and I hope to go back again next year. So I'm very envious of your weather there. How many hours have I been going? I've only been going for 1 hour so far. I'm planning to stick around for about two, and then I should probably sign off. But I will try and stick around as long as I can, I guess. I wanted Arnold to be a Skynet employee that was the original model for the T-800, but this is the human who has abandoned civilization because he knows the end is coming. Yeah, I think there's been a whole bunch of different backstories to how the T800 came to be. There was a deleted scene from T3 where he was based on like some Marine guy, but they cut it out of the movie because it was a little bit too goofy. And I'm inclined to agree because like he has this horrible like Southern accent and his voice is all over the place. And then they say like, "Oh, don't worry, we can fix that," and like it's someone speaking with Arnold's voice. So it was obviously just trying to be funny, but yeah, I think there's been loads of different versions of how he came to be. Stevie J reviews. Did you hear that Joker's script was compared to Game of Thrones season 8? I've rarely heard a worse comparison. Joker's script was minimal due to the great visual storytelling. Yeah, I don't even know how you could compare those two things. I mean, are they trying to compare it with Danny's kind of descent into madness um, at the end of season 8? I don't know, but like those two, even if you turned season 8 into a movie just for comparison purposes, it's nothing compared to something like the Joker that actually tells a good story with a really fascinating character, and you can understand why he does the things he does. So yeah, there's people out there who will just give the most bizarre takes on things, I think just to get attention more than anything. So yeah, that's something I wouldn't pay much heed to really. Right. Between Star Wars, Doctor Who, Star Trek, comics, etc., is SJW infiltration and destruction of beloved entertainment mediums or franchises inevitable? How can it be stopped? Yeah, I get asked this question a lot. Actually, I think money is going to be the deciding factor. From what I understand, and some of the people I've watched, Disney are quite well aware of the problems that something like The Last Jedi created. And they are looking for ways to backtrack and try to correct it. They just don't have the skill, and they don't have the ability to swallow their pride enough to fix it. Um, I think what you're seeing is, for example, changes behind the scenes where you've got Kevin Feige being brought in supposedly to do one movie, which we know is bullshit. He's going to end up running Lucasfilm. I would be willing to bet that someone like Kathleen Kennedy has just been quietly shuffled into a pretty much a symbolic role. She's the president of Lucasfilm in name only, and I don't think she has much day-to-day say in what goes on there now. I think Ryan Johnson, his talk about his own trilogy has been getting vaguer and vaguer as time has passed. Now he's like, when he gets asked about it, he's like, well, we'll see what happens, which kind of seems to me like nothing's going to happen. But he can't just come out and say it because that would imply that he is, in fact, a failure. So I would imagine once the current trilogy is out the way, they will start to reshuffle things a bit more obviously, and his trilogy will just get canned. I had no idea if Weiss and Benioff are going to get theirs. Something's going to have to get made at some point, I guess, but I don't know how. The actual mood amongst the fan base is so negative towards this series. I don't know how they can come back from it. Drinker, you beautiful voice of God, do you think that Black Panther 2 has a chance to be a good movie? If it calms the fuck down with all of the pandering, it's maybe that like they've got it out of their system now with the first Black Panther. They certainly can't tackle the same themes of just talking about Wakanda being this isolated country that's amazing at everything. Perhaps they can tackle bigger issues and actually have Black Panther be a total badass like he should be. But that being said, it'll still have Shuri in it, so it's going to have certain downfalls. Um, yeah, I think if they're going down this PC woke road with Phase Four, then probably Black Panther's just going to be another example of it. Sorry, Black Panther Two. But who knows? Maybe they'll surprise us. Like I say, they might have just got the worst of it out of their system with the first movie. Black Panther, sorry, Watchmen is Black Panther 2.0, drinker. Yeah, maybe it is. From what I've heard, it seems to tackle some of these issues. I'll reserve judgment till I've seen it. You what, mate? Why did you backpedal on Plank being a good actor for the MCU? I certainly did not. She is not a good actor. I don't know where you got that from. That's a far too optimistic view of Black Panther. Yeah, I mean, I want to give it a chance, but I don't want to go into it pre-hating the movie. But yeah, we'll see, I guess. Drinker, should Kathleen Kennedy be just my hero and inspiration or my goddess that I pray to for guidance? Why not both? You know, if you're looking for an example of how not to run a major studio, then look no further because she is an absolute walking clusterfuck of a producer and a president who's had entirely too much credit for like past successes, which I think she pretty much just wrote the checks for. I think she's someone who's ridden on the coattails of far more talented and successful people over the years. And being president of Lucasfilm was pretty much just a glorified long service award from George Lucas. But it was a terrible decision. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on Kathleen Kennedy. Jacob Babcock, drinker, you absolute powerhouse of media knowledge. I love your videos and got my fiance hooked as well. Been watching for about 6 months and still enjoying. What is your favourite whiskey to drink? Uh, my favourite overall would be Lagavulin. because it's a really nice balance of flavors, and it's not too peaty, not too subtle, pretty bold whiskey. Yeah, it's an excellent one all round. Highland Park comes close runner up, and yeah, as I was saying, I'm really into the old Putney at the moment. Very much enjoying it. This is the time of year when it's good to drink whiskey because it's fucking cold all the time and it's dark. So yeah, whiskey is a good recourse. Prometheus review is the funniest so far. Thanks, man. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It was a plot that was really easy to take apart because there's so much nonsense in it. It's just great. There's so much stupidity. You give alcoholics like me a good name, thank you. Well, no worries, man. I do my best. Drinker, greetings from Japan. What are your hopes or lack thereof for any further Trek movies after Beyond? And what do you think, if anything, about the prospect of Tarantino Trek? I don't think Tarantino's a good fit for Star Trek. I mean, he's a great writer and a decent director. He's not the kind of guy I would imagine doing a Star Trek movie uh, in any way. I don't see how he would fit into that mold at all. I hope they don't do any more Star Trek movies in the Kelvin timeline because, as I said in my Into Darkness review, they've all been shit. Like, they're just dumb space action movies that have got almost nothing to do with Star Trek at all. When I sat down to watch The Wrath of Khan and compared it to Into Darkness just for the purposes of that review, I was like, holy shit, this movie was made like 40 years ago and it's brilliant even today. You know, it tells a great story, really interesting characters, deals with great ideas, and it does it all in a well paced and thoughtful way. And then you get something like Into Darkness, which is just this horrible bastardization of it that tries to shoehorn in characters and scenes and bits of dialogue that are totally out of context, and it's creatively bankrupt. So um, yeah, I don't like these new Kelvin timeline movies at all, and I just wish they would fuck off. Tarantino wouldn't be able to handle Ghosts of Mars. Nah, only Carpenter could do that. The last Star Trek movie was unwatchable. Yeah, pretty much. From what I understand, they had huge problems with the scripting of it and behind the scenes, and they pretty much had to cobble together something at the last minute, and that's why it's pretty much an incoherent mess. They also brought in Simon Pegg to do script rewrites, hence the large amount of screen time that Simon Pegg gets on that movie. Um, I mean, he's a great actor of mine. Like, he's a great comedy actor. He pops up in some of the strangest movies these days, but I guess he must know a lot of people in Hollywood. Like, but yeah, no disrespect to him, but I don't think he added much to it when he did his rewrites. Too many lens flares. Yeah, that's old JJ at work there with his trademark lens flares. What's my favorite Carpenter movie? It would probably be Escape from New York. I really love that, and Kurt fucking Russell as Snake Plissken is just fantastic. It's a pretty well paced thriller, actually, considering when it was made and the resources they had available for it. I really like it, and yeah, it's a shame they had to do Escape from LA as well. It didn't quite measure up. But that's probably my favorite Carpenter one. I also like the one. It was one of his Apocalypse trilogy ones. The one with Sam Neill, In the Mouth of Madness. What a like bizarre horror movie, but what a great idea for one. Um, I think it was great. It had some pretty decent moments in it. I love Sam Neill and everything he does. And it even had the dude who played Vigo the Carpathian from Ghostbusters 2 in it. He had like a little cameo. So yeah, those are my two favourites. Chernabog. Back in July, I was vacationing in Scotland and I climbed Ben Nevis. I came home and was surprised to find out my favourite YouTuber, and I may have been on the mountain at the same exact time. Cheers, mate. No, thanks, man. Yeah, I was there in, I think it was late June or early July, and I was planning to climb the mountain anyway. And I thought, nah, it would be quite cool to record some footage at the top. And I was really lucky with the weather because it was a beautiful sunny day, not a breath of wind or anything. So quite rare for the top of that mountain. That's like the third time I've been up that hill, um, but it's a really nice part of the world. So I hope you enjoyed yourself when you were there. Oh, The Thing, hands down, is the best Carpenter movie, and then Big Trouble in Little China. I can't believe I forgot about that actually. Fuck. Yeah, another couple of great movies. If I had to pick between the two, I'd say Big Trouble in Little China because I just love Jack Burton in that movie. He's an absolute legend. Um, yeah, great film and really fun to watch. I still would be happy to watch it even right now. Drinker, you cornucopia of candid commentation of current culture. I love your rants. Have you seen the trailers for Midway and 1917? Thoughts on either? I have seen the trailer for Midway actually, and it looked surprisingly okay. Kind of just an old school World War II movie that you don't see very often now. And Midway is a battle from World War II that's probably most people aren't even aware of nowadays. But it was kind of like the turning point of the war in the Pacific, from what I understand. It was the point where the Japanese suffered their first major defeat, so could be interesting. I haven't seen much about 1917 though, so can't comment on that yet. When do we get a Ryan Drake movie slash TV slash video game adaptation? I have actually sold the movie rights to my first novel, Redemption, which they have been actively developing with the aim of getting it into a movie. So they've written a script, from what I know, and yeah, they're trying to get international finance for it because like it's kind of like a smaller studio that's making it, but they need a fairly big budget because it's like an action movie. So they have to try and get finance from various countries and investors and stuff, and it's basically a giant pain in the arse. So I just let them get on with it. But one day, God willing, there'll be a Ryan Drake movie in the cinemas, and then you guys can tear it to shreds. Let's crowdfund the drinker a trip to Galaxy's Edge. Yeah, you could do. I'd probably be the only person there from what I've heard. Yeah, I'm probably going to go back to Orlando next year. And so I'll check out the Disney parks. The last time I was in Hollywood Studios, they were still building Galaxy's Edge, so it will be interesting to see what it looks like, if nothing else. They would never let the drinker into Disney. They they haven't even let me in, and I don't have a YouTube channel. Yeah, they tried to throw me out of a Disney property once because I was wearing an FC UK t-shirt, and they said it wasn't allowed. But I showed them because I stripped off and then walked around with no shirt on, and then everyone was sad. Just so you know, UN Undersecretary Aversala from The Expanse loves Lagavulin too, so that should give you a bonus point when you watch the show. Well, they've got good taste in that case. That's a reason for me to watch it for sure. I will get round to watching The Expanse, I promise. Drinker, a good whiskey for a whiskey virgin. Well, where to start? Just don't buy any of the blended whiskies like Bell's or Famous Grouse or anything like that. You want something reasonably like smooth, so probably Highland Park would be my recommendation. It's not too peaty and it's not too like salty or anything like that, and it'll be enough to get you started. But you've kind of got to find your own preferences with whiskey and just try lots of different kinds. I don't like The Last Jedi. Does that make me sexist? Yes, it does, and misogynist and racist and probably everything else. 2. Uh, hated you for hating Rambo 5. Yeah, look, I'm sorry about that review. It's not one that I wanted to make. I wanted to love that movie because I've enjoyed all the previous Rambo films, and I guess it just fell flat for me. I will be slightly more positive than I said in my review, and I'll say that the movie comes alive in like the last 15 or 20 minutes when Rambo just goes to full-on revenge mode. That's when it's good. I think it's just everything that leads up to that is really plodding and kind of meandering, and it just doesn't feel like a Rambo movie at all. So, I mean, that was my criticism of it. I know some, people enjoyed it. Personally, though, I find it hard to get into. It was just hard going. Have have you ever seen the HBO series The Pacific? Yeah, so that's just the sequel. Well, it's not the sequel, but like it's done in the same kind of vein as Band of Brothers. In which case, yes, I've watched The Pacific. I didn't enjoy it as much as Band of Brothers. I felt like it was a bit more of a fragmented story, and perhaps not as compelling narrative-wise. I don't know if it's just because like my knowledge of the Pacific War just isn't as good as the European aspect of World War II, or just maybe the characters weren't quite as good. But I would take Band of Brothers over the Pacific, probably. Ah, Drinker, you should review a spaghetti western like Good, the Bad, and the Ugly as a personal favourite from Stephen H. Good recommendation. I was actually planning to review Unforgiven fairly soon, as a drinker recommends, because again, westerns aren't tackled that much these days, and it's one of my favorites personally because it's Clint Eastwood's kind of swan song to the western genre, and it manages to be respectful to western movies while also kind of debunking some of the myths around them, or the mythos, and the kind of heroism that's constructed around that kind of image of the cowboys and fighting bandits and all the rest of it. Um, it gives an interesting take on that while still just being an awesome movie, and it's got Clint Eastwood and Morgan Freeman and Gene Hackman in it, some of the great actors of their generation. So I would like to do that. But it'd be interesting to do the Dollars trilogy as well. Those spaghetti westerns were something else. Not a follow up to Band of Brothers. It was a standalone account of three different servicemen. Yeah, I think I just probably didn't word it very well there. I guess I was saying it was done in the same vein as Band of Brothers, but it's not like a sequel to it or anything. But yeah, it's a kind of same style, and it's in the same movie or TV universe. I would love to. I'd love for you to review Doctor Strangelove. Wow, yeah, that would be a challenging one to review. I think, obviously, movies like that, which are so rooted in the Cold War and mutual destruction and stuff, are kind of harder to review nowadays because that culture is less relevant. But as a piece of satire, it was great. Like there was some amazing moments in it. Yeah, Peter Sellers, just what a performance he gave. I need to hum or something when you read. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's hard to keep track of the chat sometimes because I end up like falling behind with it, and then I'm trying to catch up to it and tackle some of the more recent stuff. Drinker, you are smashed 99% of the time, but you make more sense than 99% of the internet. Thank you for your unapologetic approach to the nonsense in current cinema. You're my hero. Thanks, man. Um, yeah, I mean, I just tried to tell it like it is, I guess, with my reviews. Like, for me, YouTube isn't my sole income. Like I don't do it as a job, so I don't have to worry so much about what I say or potentially offending someone. And I just try to be honest when I'm tearing down crappy movies. I like to at least justify my opinions. I don't just hate on things irrationally. Um, but I at least try to construct an argument for why I think something's good or bad and give examples of it. Um, is my book series available in German? Yes, it is. All of them are available in German. The first one is called Mission Vendetta in German translation. Um, so yeah, you can get them all on Amazon as far as I'm aware, or any other online retailer, I guess. Drinker, we'd buy you all the drinks you could handle and your own saber if you joined us at Galaxy's Edge. Serious drinker level price tier, perhaps. Win a Star Wars date with the drinker. that that could be yeah, that could be something special. I think if I was to go there next year, I would definitely record a few videos while I'm there. Maybe even try to review rides or something while I'm in the park, and see how long I can last before they throw me out. But yeah, it could be fun to have a meetup. Trick Dog, what kind of music are you into, and is the soundtrack of a film important for your review? Are there animated movies that you're interested in? Well, that's a whole bunch of different questions there. Um, in terms of the soundtrack, it's not important for the purposes of my reviews, but the soundtrack for a movie is just another aspect of your kind of entertainment experience while you're watching it. It helps to build the emotional tone, and it's not to say that a good soundtrack can save a terrible movie, but it can soften the blow a little bit, and it can really heighten important scenes and poignant scenes and everything. um the ones that always stick in my head is, like, for example, the Lord of the Rings, in Return of the King, when Frodo and Sam have kind of made it all the way, almost to the top of Mount Doom, and Frodo kind of collapses and sort of looks up at the summit of the mountain, like with this big raging volcano over him, and like this sort of poignant kind of flute music comes in as he starts to kind of crawl up with the last of his strength. He's trying to crawl up the mountain to reach his objective because he's got nothing left in the tank. And it just sets that scene perfectly. It's one of those moments in cinema that I'm just like, that was perfectly done. Couldn't have done a better job there. Um, in terms of music for myself, like, really, when I'm writing, or whatever, or working, I tend to use a lot of soundtracks in my work, like just to again set that emotional tone for what I'm doing. If I'm writing a action scene or a poignant scene in a book, I'll have try and find a piece of matching soundtrack to get me into that mood, and I generally find it really helps. Um, Animated movies that I'm interested in. Um, I've referenced some of the kind of Studio Ghibli movies that I've really enjoyed. Castle in the Sky was one of my favorites. Princess and Mononoke is another great movie. I loved Metropolis. I know that's not a Studio Ghibli one, but it's another anime. Again, soundtrack in that is like, a lot of, like, there's Ray Charles songs, like these old kind of classic jazz songs, which seems like it would be a total mismatch for what's going on. But when you actually see it play out, it's brilliant. The animation's great. Brilliant stories that they tell. So those are probably my animated movies that I would pick. I feel like I've actually missed a super chat here that's kind of passed me by. Give me 1 second while I find it. Oh yeah, there it is. So I've got to know. Sorry, the Big Red Bear says, "I've got to know. Are you looking forward to the big release this weekend, Terminator: Dark Fate? I hope it feels hard enough to let the franchise die. I'm pretty much sure it's gonna flop big time. It's a bad time of year to be releasing a movie like this anyway. But the fact that the studio seems to be panicking about it. They've gone all out with the trailer and just pretty much given away the entire plot. they've started releasing critics reviews, which all sound suspiciously similar. Like it's the best movie since Terminator 2. It's a return to form for the series, and it just looks like they're reading off cue cards. And it's just another example of why mainstream critics are completely irrelevant now. They'll say whatever they're paid to say. Um, yeah, I think it's going to be a big time failure, probably as bad as Genesis. And I'm looking forward to seeing it. And I really hope this just spells the end for the Terminator franchise because, as much as I loved the first two, um, everything since then has been varying shades of crap. And it's just going nowhere. It's just recycling the same stuff. So it just needs to stop now. And please stop wheeling Arnold Schwarzenegger out. He's too old for this. I love him like as a crazy old Austrian granddad, but he's done now with action movies. Lord Walter Stark. Have you seen the classic movie Patton? Would you do a review on a movie of that one that's that old or older? I would be tempted, yeah. They pretty much. I'm trying to remember his name. I think it was George Segal that they got from Doctor Strangelove in order to play Patton. He was basically playing that same kind of, over the top cigar chomping general kind of character. And obviously Patton's the real kind of historical general, but like he captured that same spirit when he was playing him. And it's been a good many years since I've seen Patton, but I do remember it being a pretty compelling movie when I saw it. The thing is, a lot of these older movies, like these war films and stuff, they don't get enough credit for like the actual quality of the craft that goes into them. Um, but I think when you compare them to a lot of the stuff nowadays, they still hold up quite favorably. I used to love some of the old war films, like the Bridget Remagen. Was one of my favorite old movies, and I think it was one that was quite interesting because it portrays both sides in a fair light. I think they're just soldiers trying to survive. Another good one was the Big Red One that had Mark Hamill in it. It was about the First Infantry Division during World War II. And again, tells a great story. It had fucking Lee Marvin in it as well as like the sergeant leading the squads. Like actors that you don't get guys like that anymore. Proper old school badasses. So yeah, I would like to review older movies like that if I got the chance, and try and maybe contrast them with some of the stuff that they produce now. Yeah, Drinker, would you give Daisy Ridley the D? I don't know, man. Someone asked me to pick between her and Brie Larson, and it's honestly a tough call. It's like, who do you hate most? Um, yeah, I don't know, man. She wouldn't be my first choice, put it that way. Most people probably only associate you with your brutally honest movie reviews, but I've got to say, I really enjoyed your game reviews on the Resident Evil series. Any plans for future game reviews? Yeah, like I said earlier in the stream, I would be tempted to review some more of the Tomb Raider games, because again, I like that as a series that progresses and changes. I have recently played Metro Exodus, and that was quite an interesting game that I'd probably be interested in talking about. Obviously it's based on a series of books from what I understand, but it's got some great characters in it, and it's done from quite a distinctive point of view. They've got a very unique personality that you don't often see in games nowadays. So I enjoyed that, and I'd like to talk about it. So yeah, things like that would be good. I know my game reviews don't generally get as much traction as the movie stuff, um, but they are fun to talk about. Yeah, so what we got here? Yeah, Lee Marvin, an old World War II Marine, played a great role in the Big Red One. Yeah, I think he was like in the story, like he'd fought as a young man in World War One, and then when World War II came around, he was much older and he was leading a platoon, and he actually ends up revisiting the battlefields where he fought in the First World War. So it's quite cool. Dirty Dozen would be another great review. Yep, another classic old war movie. Great stuff. Really enjoyed it. Ridley all the way. That overbite. I thought she had an underbite. She's got this weird kind of jutting forward going thing going on with her jaw. But yeah, either way, not great. Um, have you seen Flags of Our Fathers and Letters from Iwo Jima? Yeah, I've seen both of them, and I think it's a great idea. What Eastwood did with it, this idea of showing the same battle in two movies from both sides, and you get a real insight into not just the struggle of the Marines trying to take this godforsaken island, but the increasingly desperate Japanese trying to hold on to it, and some of their motivation for things like they killing themselves with grenades and all that sort of thing. And yeah, really good, solid movies that kind of give you that harrowing picture of war, and a particularly brutal war in the Pacific. Drinker, I wonder if there's any Civil War movies that explore the Confederate perspective. Good question. I'm not well up on my Civil War movies, so I couldn't really tell you on that one, I'm afraid. Have you watched Godzilla King of the Monsters? I haven't actually seen that one yet. I'm looking forward to seeing it. Again, it's apparently a complete disaster. They pretty much brought in Millie Bobby Brown to cry on command, as far as I can tell. And poor old Ken Watanabe's just staring off into the distance again, completely shocked by what's going on. But in all other respects, it just seems like a crappy attempt to capture that Godzilla magic, really. Neither of the two modern Godzilla movies have been good, in my opinion. Bruce Campbell for president, absolutely, I would vote for him. Get wasted on the live stream. I'm going to do a live stream at some point with a couple other people, and we are just going to drink pretty much solidly throughout the whole thing. Probably the most drunk I've been was when I did my very first EFAP, because it went on for like 9 hours, and I had a bottle of whiskey next to me, and I pretty much did not stop sipping from that the whole stream. Um, and I was feeling pretty rough the next day when I did that. That's why I was getting more and more ranty and incoherent towards the end of it. Tora, Tora, Tora. Yeah, that's another brilliant World War II movie. As far as action scenes go, it's pretty incredible. Probably told a better version of Pearl Harbor than the actual movie Pearl Harbor as well. All right, Trek Dog. Have you heard of the Anis Abdin case? Do you think there's an increase of incidents? People borrow ideas from other people for series and movies. Um, Is this the guy who's suing the makers of Star Trek Discovery because they stole the ideas from his book about like the fungus drive that powers their ship? Um, if so, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that's what they've actually done. And I wish them the best of luck in that case, because that kind of plagiarism is absolute bullshit, and it's pretty disgusting for a show which is already terrible. So yeah, I guess we'll wait and see what comes out of that. Storm Tacey, I produced the behind the scenes documentary for Metro Exodus as well as most of the trailers. Awesome games. Well, if that's the case, that's really cool, actually. Um, yeah, I love the characters from Metro Exodus, especially Anna. Like I think I've mentioned before, um, she is a great example of a female character in a game that's really tough and smart and independent, but is also nice to people. And she doesn't act like a complete bitch to all the male characters. She just kind of listens to their opinions and then, um, you know, helps them out. So, yeah, a great bit of writing in that game. I think the characters are all really well done. My only criticism of it, I think, is that there's two different endings you can get. and whether you get the good ending or the bad ending depends on how many of your fellow characters survive. And whether or not they survive depends on decisions you make really early in the game when you're just getting the hang of it. So it seems a little bit disingenuous and unfair that you get penalized so late on for something that you did early in the game. But that's my only criticism of it, really. Otherwise, it's a great game. Drinker, Halloween is near. If you had to pick one horror film to rip apart, what would it be? And Drinker recommends, what would it be? My Drinker recommends would be Event Horizon, and I'm actually going to do a review on that, hopefully before Halloween rolls around, because it's one of my favorite horror movies, and I really enjoy it. It's one of those underrated little gems that just doesn't get enough attention nowadays, but a very effective sci-fi horror movie, and I would have no trouble recommending it. So yeah, that would be my top pick. I've already ripped apart a bunch of horror movies that I didn't like recently. I criticized Us for being, so preoccupied with its themes that it loses the actual thread of its plot. And I criticized Midsummer for just being boring and pretentious. So I feel like I've kind of tackled crappy horror movies already. So I'd like to do one that I just enjoyed and talk about that. D Gonzo, for my mate the drinker, I recommend the movie The Nice Guys with Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe. Yeah, one of my best mates has loved that, and he's been going on about it for years to get me to see it. I just haven't had the chance, or it's not been on TV. But I would really like to see it because apparently it is really fun. It's a great movie. But yeah, thanks for your donation, man. I appreciate it. Malin Keisner. Tarantino is refusing to edit his new movie for China. Pretty cool, in my opinion. Heard anything about the film? Love your work. To have a drink myself. Cool. Yeah, I stand with him 100% on that one. You shouldn't have to edit your movie for any particular audience. Ultimately, your work is a piece of art, and it's your right to express your art in any way that you want to, and you shouldn't kowtow to politics or anything like that, just to try and please people. So, yep, I support him 100%. Choice of actor for Ryan Drake. Um, I always pictured him as being a bit like Jason Statham, but with hair. So if that's any help, like give him a wig, he could probably play him. Drinker, you need to rip apart Doom Annihilation. Yeah, I've heard I've heard things about this. Is it not like some shitty direct to DVD thing? Um, and it's just the cheesiest thing ever. If so, yeah, it would be great to tear that apart. Maybe I could do it in time for Halloween. I don't know. There's too many other things to try and cover. Please watch Alien. I've watched Alien millions of times, man. I love it. Jalapeno milk. Can any version of Batman work with Joaquin Joker? Uh, well, probably not the goofy 1960s version from the Batman TV show. Or, well, I don't think the Tim Burton version would work very well either. This was very much its own thing. I also don't think this is going to tie into the larger DCEU in any meaningful way. Like, I would be happy for the DCEU to produce like these almost standalone movies that just tell separate stories. If they produce things as good as Joker, um, that would be just fine. I don't think everything needs to be tied together into some overarching story. You don't need to copy the MCU. So yeah, that would be my advice. Do you read books? If so, I'd recommend Yoju Senki. It's about fantasy world war with magic. Nice stuff. Anime is okay, but it suffers in adaptation. Well, I'll keep that one in mind. I don't get as much time to read books as I was like because basically when I spend half my life writing them, the last thing I want to do is read more. It's kind of like my profession. And I also worry like when I'm doing my own books that I'm going to read something and it's going to filter through into my own work. And before I know it, I end up like subconsciously copying other people. But when I've got my breaks in between, I'll make a note of that one. So thank you for the recommendation, sir. P-Share. Drinker, you fountain of mirth and madness. How long does it usually take you to complete one of your literary works? Any advice for aspiring authors? Well, it usually takes me about 4 or 5 months to write the basic manuscript for it. Then I'll go back over it and do an edit. So just fixing any things that jump out of me or any things I've made a note of along the way. Sometimes you get ideas as you go and you just give it a second pass to tidy it up. Then I'll send it off to my editors. They'll give me their thoughts and I'll make any changes that they think are necessary. And then probably at the end of that whole process, they'll send me the the front cover that they've designed, and I can give my thoughts on that. We'll have a finished manuscript, and probably about 7 or 8 months after I start writing it, we'll have a finished book that gets published. So, yeah, I tend to produce one per year, and it's about a 6 or 7 month time scale for that. So it's a fair bit of like time and effort, but it's worth it because it's really rewarding for me. What do you think of the game with Michael Douglas? Yeah, another Michael Douglas movie that I really liked. I thought it was a great twist and a really enjoyable movie. So yeah, it definitely gets thumbs up from me. What's your opinion on the Stannis storyline on this show? So from Game of Thrones, um, yeah, I felt like Stannis was really criminally underused towards the end. They built him up into a really interesting character, and then it's like, yeah, we've kind of run out of stuff for you to do now. Just die, go away now. So it felt like a bit of a waste, and I was sorry to see him go because I really appreciated his character. I thought he was interesting. I can't find a copy of Ryan Drake's second book that doesn't take months to ship. No idea why. I don't know about that one. To be honest, they should be available on any Amazon in your area. Um, you can get the ebook for sure because it's an instant download. So not sure why that's not happening. Ruby Rose's Hollywood career shouldn't extend past being a Pez dispenser stand, but because she's a gay woman, she keeps getting job after job. Yeah, the only thing I can think that Ruby Rose has got going for her is that she's got quite a unique look. She's kind of striking looking. I wouldn't say she's attractive, but she does look interesting at least. And because of that, she gets cast in a lot of things. But the problem is she tends to play like pretty much the same character in everything that she's in. And when I see an actor doing that sort of thing, it makes me think that they're not really acting, they're just basically being themselves. In which case, that would make her a really cocky, arrogant, unlikable idiot. So, yeah, I don't think she really deserves to get loads of roles, but she should probably make the most of it while it lasts because Batwoman could well kill it for her. Mike Downey. Alien is my favourite movie of all time. Whiskey recommendation, sipping, not shooting. Yeah, as I've seen with my recommendations, probably Lagavulin and Old Putney and Highland Park are my three faves at the moment. I would say that I like Aliens slightly more than Alien. Different films, obviously, that go for a different atmosphere, but Aliens is just so much damn fun, man. I enjoy it every time I watch it. And just great characters, great action, and great dialogue. I can't fault it. She looks like Justin Bieber. Yeah, it's the hair, man. Um, it doesn't do her any favors. I liked Ruby Rose in John Wick too. Yeah, that's probably because she didn't speak in it. That made her more enjoyable. Um, but again, she looked interesting. I think that's her big thing. She looks striking. So she actually got to have a decent fight with John Wick as well. And um, the movie didn't pull its punches. She got killed. So yeah, fair play. She wasn't just this all-conquering superwoman. Trick Dog, do you have any advice to fight the headache the next day? For your books, do you have the whole storyline before you write or just develop on the run? Yeah, my advice is to get some food in you before you go to bed if you're out drinking or before you pass out. Um, get some food and some water in you, and that will usually help with the hangover the next day. You can try and head it off at the pass. I do try and write a synopsis for my books before I actually get down to writing the main manuscript, just because they're usually quite complex and they've got lots of different plot lines that kind of interweave. So I need to make sure it all makes sense before I really launch into it. So I'll write like a 5-10 page synopsis of everything major that happens in it, and that usually keeps me on track. That's my kind of plan for the book. Cast Tessa Thompson and Ruby Rose in everything. Am I right? Yeah, pretty much. I think if you got the two of them together, the world would just melt down with how annoying they are. The smugness would overwhelm our senses. Yeah, two of my least favorite actresses, I think. Qui-Gon, my last two super chats have been missed. Well, we're not going to have that, sir. I will troll back through them and find them because I'm not going to have missed super chats on my live stream. Just give me 1 second while I look back through the list. Right, so have you watched Batman Mask of Phantasm? No, I'm afraid I haven't. I take it that's an animated one, but I'm not familiar with it, I'm afraid, so I haven't seen it. Um, And I feel bad for you actually because you've sent me these super chats, and ultimately my answer is I'm sorry I haven't seen that thing you're referencing. I apologize, but yeah, I'm sorry you had to send me it twice. Ah, she wasn't killed. John Wick said to her, "I'll see you around," or something like that. Yeah, she actually she gave him that hand signal to say, "I'll see you, I'll be seeing you," and then John Wick just kind of looked at her and went, "Yeah," and then walked off. But I took it to mean that she was dying, and he was just like, "Yeah, fuck you, I'm out of here." It could be that she's still alive, though. Who knows? She certainly wasn't in John Wick 3, thank God. Drinker, if you woke up next to Brie Larson with a wedding ring on both of you, what would be your actions? I'd pull a John Wick on my ring finger and slice it off, and then I would run away as quickly as possible, and hope that I hadn't consummated the marriage. I guess that's probably the safest plan in this case. Captain Redneck, Drinker, you're a spastic, sire. Admit you love Ray and be one with the gay, or be homophobic. Ugh, no, I'm never gonna do it. I can't handle Ray. She's just too goddamn boring. Was my vacation rehab? No, it was the exact opposite actually, because I was in a hotel that was giving me free booze, so it was the opposite of rehab. But it did give me a little break from working and stuff, so it was good. It was good to recharge the batteries, and it got me back ready to get into it again. So I'm looking forward to making more videos as soon as possible. When you write, how much importance do you give to my themes? Not an awful lot, to be honest. I have the same regard for themes in my books or any books as I do in movies. They should never override the plot and the coherence of the plot and the development of your characters. Those are the main things that are important to me. You can certainly address ideas in your work, but you should still tell a coherent and interesting story at the end of it. Ruby Rose is the Grace Jones of her day. That's a pretty good description of her, actually. She's not as insane as Grace Jones, though, so she loses out there. Drinker, what is your favorite Jean-Claude Van Damme film? Oh man, um, I love Bloodsport from back in the day. It's classic Van Damme where he gets put into a fighting tournament for no particular reason. Um, So that was good. Kickboxer, same idea. He's just there because his brother got beaten by this guy, and then he wants to kill him. And probably Universal Soldier as well. I always love that for the kind of goofy action in it. Yeah, all three of those movies were good. I'm trying to think of the one where there was like two of him as well. There was like a twin brother. Yeah, so many of his movies are just absolute classics. Oh, and of course, Street Fighter the movie. You can't go wrong there. It's just got everything. Alan Moore's Sick the Snake Gods on Lindelof. Like, put a curse on Watchmen. Is it deserved? Yeah, it is, because I don't think you should take such liberties with your source material. You should have a bit of respect for it and don't just take it and use it as a vehicle to push your own politics and massage your own ego. So, yeah, I support Alan Moore on that one. Starship Troopers. Yeah, a movie that I didn't understand when I first watched it. I didn't take it for the satire that it was. I just took it as a straight up sci-fi action movie. Um, but actually, it is pretty good, like kind of satire on these kind of totalitarian governments that mobilize their citizens just with propaganda and stuff. So actually, it's a smarter movie than I gave it credit for. Yeah, it's a decent film, and it does actually have some pretty good action scenes in it as well. What do you think about the god himself, Tom Atkins? I'm not sure what to think about him, to be honest. Not too familiar, so I couldn't answer that one, sadly. Me Critical, what is your worst? So, what's your favorite and worst Star Trek movie? My favorite is without doubt The Wrath of Khan, because I just think it's the quintessential Star Trek movie with the original cast, brilliantly paced, brilliantly acted, just a character driven story with good space battle scenes that make sense and not all flashy lens flare and just people running around like madcap idiots. So that's my favorite. My least favorite is probably Into Darkness, just because it draws so many comparisons and it steals so much from Wrath of Khan. I find it the most insulting out of the lot. Um, Probably Beyond is a an even worse movie overall, but Into Darkness is the one that pisses me off the most. What's your favorite Brie Larson movie? I've only seen like two of them. Oh no, in fact, she was in Scott Pilgrim versus the World as well, as far as I remember. She was serviceable in that because she didn't have much time in it, and she was younger and less full of herself. Um, she was good in Room. I'll give her some credit there. She actually turned in a good performance in that movie because I think she actually cared about it. Um, but yeah, those are like the only three that I've seen her in, so it's hard to gauge. Double Impact, that was the Van Damme movie. Yes. The best thing about Bloodsport was the end panel that suggested it was based on real life. Yeah, apparently it was a guy called Frank Duke, who it was based on, and he was involved in the production of the movie, and he apparently challenged Van Damme to a fight at one point. But history does not record whether Van Damme took him up on his offer. So yeah, brilliant. It's just a bit of 1980s bullshit there. I love it. I'm going to do one more question and then I'm probably going to wrap it up because I'm kind of come to the end of my 2 hours and I'm getting tired and incoherent. Yeah, the Starship Troopers movie was made by someone who'd read like the first two chapters of the book and then got bored. Yeah, it was again, I think it was meant to be satire. The book apparently made a lot of use of robotic kind of powered armor and the sort of stuff that's never mentioned in the movie. The movie just looks like World War One soldiers going into battle like en masse with no support or tanks or aircraft or anything. But again, it was part of this satire of like human wave attacks and the value of propaganda and trying to make people buy into this ridiculous strategy that they've got. Um, but yeah, it was very different from the book apparently. But I'm pretty much at the end of my time now, so I think I'm going to wrap up this stream now. But I do appreciate everyone that's joined me for it. It's good to be back from my holiday, and I've enjoyed chatting this evening. And I'm looking forward to making more videos soon. Look out for, I guess, my reaction to the Star Wars proper trailer when it comes out, like tonight or tomorrow from my time. And I'll be doing a review on Batwoman and Event Horizon in the near future. So that's all I've got for now. Go away now.